Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here closing out my first January paycheck budget. So as always, I get paid fortnightly, so every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks I do a brand new budget for that pay period, and I do close it out at the end of those 2 weeks. Any excess money I have or hopefully have from the end of the pay period, I like to then throw at my financial goals, which is currently my debt payoff. So let's share what happened over the last 2 weeks. So I've got on the screen here my spreadsheet. If you ever want this spreadsheet, please let me know. I'm happy to send it across to you. But basically for my income, I was planning to receive in total $3,098.35 from my employer, of which some came from the main income and some came from salary packaging. So what I actually ended up receiving, instead of the $2,751.82, I did get my leave load-in. So that came out to just over $3,000. So it was $251.10 more than I was expecting, which was fantastic. My salary packaging is always exactly the same at $346.53. Now, over the past 2 weeks, I didn't actually receive any kind of extra income. I didn't have any savings to use or any kind of other income. So it was just income from my main employer, which totaled $3,349.45. Moving down to my bills that came out over the last 2 weeks. The first one is my mortgage, and that is always spot on $700 that I transfer myself. My health insurance is always exactly correct. And then I have a bunch of subscriptions here. So Spotify, iCloud, Disney Plus, and Microsoft 365. And they were all exactly as expected. So $11.99 for Spotify, $1.49 for iCloud, $13.99 for Disney Plus, and $10 for Microsoft. So that's how I like bills. I like it when they're spot on, so we know what we're budgeting for. The next one, so Sydney Water, I usually budget $200 for that, but I always hope it's going to be a bit less, and that did happen this pay period. So I budgeted $200, but it was actually only $157.32, so that was great. My NRMA roadside, so I budgeted $200, and this is a yearly bill, so that would cover the entire year. But that also was a little bit less than expected, so I only had to pay $192.60. And for some reason I did end up with like a 5 or 10% discount. I'm not sure why, but that's why that ended up being less than expected. So that means for my bills, I was originally planning to spend $1,266.07. However, I only ended up spending $1,215.99, which means we're under budget by around $50. So that was a good start. Moving down to my variable expenses, and I feel like this is where the budget always goes great or terrible. This is kind of like the deciding factor in my budget usually. So for petrol, I had budgeted $150. Now I did fill up twice, and that came out to $121.32. So petrol has gone down a little bit here recently. It's not low, but it was like around $1.60 to $1.70, which is a lot better than being over $2 like it was consistently a few months back. So I'm hoping that trend definitely stays. Toll, so the e-toll for me, mainly to drive on one of the highways here, did come out once, and that was $100.20. So that was as expected. Food and groceries, I'm trying so hard on because it's such a big category for me that I'm really working on getting down. Now, I did get HelloFresh the last 2 weeks, and I think I might have mentioned in this budget so they were going to be $85 a week. However, I had kind of miscalculated the timing. That $85 was actually for the first 2 weeks I was back on HelloFresh, which was kind of at the end of December and early January. So during this pay period, I actually only had a 25% discount. So they came out to be $110 a week, which is still cheaper than I would usually spend like at Woolworths or Coles. It was a little bit more than expected. I also did have to fill up on, I guess, lots of like basics for the new year. So I had to get like oil, flour, balsamic vinegar, white wine vinegar, so all those kind of basic things. So saying that, I did manage to stay just under budget. So $447.03. So we're just under, which I am happy with. Household, now this is where things did go bad. So I only budgeted 50, but I ended up spending $129.97. And the reason for that is I spent a little bit of money on some food containers for work. And then I wanted to buy some new cleaning products and really stock up. And then I decided to buy through, instead of buying it through Woolworths, my regular groceries, I decided to buy through a company called Zero Co. And they're basically like a sustainable company where like the packaging is recyclable. You can return your bottles when you're finished with them. It's just like a more sustainable way to do cleaning products. And I believe they also have not as many like nasty chemicals in the actual product itself. So I ended up buying kind of like a package of the products, basically everything you need for your home. So like floor cleaner, laundry stuff, washing up liquid, washing up tabs, general multi-purpose cleaner. And that kind of bundle is meant to last for around 3 months, and it was around $100. So that's where the bulk of this money came from. However, I'm okay with that because that will hopefully last me for 3 months is what they're kind of advertising. So we'll see how that lasts. If anyone's interested in that company, I might even just link them down below in case. I have started using the products and they've all been fantastic so far. So sustainable and good product, I'm here for that. So I will link it down below in case anyone's interested. Health, so I budgeted 50 and I spent $34.80. So I did have to get one prescription and then I bought some Band-Aids. That was my health. Personal or fun money, I spent nothing. I'm trying to be good with that, so nothing specific. And miscellaneous, I budgeted 50 and I only spent $20.60. And that ended up being when I went through an automatic car wash. And that was, $20. So in total, I was planning to spend $901 in variable expenses, but I only spent $853.92. So that's, even though I went really significantly over in household, luckily overall I was still under, thanks to being under in several of the other categories. Moving down to sinking funds. So for this pay period for sinking funds, I was only really planning on putting money into my council rates, and that's kind of what happened. So I did put my $300 into council rates and I did put nothing into any other category. What I am hoping to be able to do in the future, so we can start funding some of these smaller ones, is that up here in my variable for these three categories, my household, my health and my personal, if there is money left over in these categories, I'm hoping them to transfer them down into the corresponding sinking fund. So for example, any leftover in household would go down into this household fund, health and personal. However, because I was so far over in household this paycheck, I actually didn't then kind of being under in health and personal just kind of covered that overspending in household. So I didn't really have any extra to put into the sinking funds. So I didn't get to do that this paycheck. However, that is my plan for the future, that hopefully I have left over so I can start funding these sinking funds as well. But instead, just did my $300 for council rate, so I feel good that my next council race payments is now taken care of when that comes up in February. The last part of my paycheck, as always, is debt, savings and investments. So for savings, I had budgeted $0, and that's exactly what I did. Nope, sorry, the whole thing just zoomed down, but anyway, it was $0. And then my debt. So business debt is what I'm really focusing, so I might leave that to the end. So for my credit card one, put nothing in because it's not due yet. In fact, I put nothing in for any of my credit cards because they're not due until the end of the month. My personal loan did come out, so that's $213.90. And my family loan I'm not paying for yet. And then my business debt. So I had budgeted $417.38. However, whenever I have any leftover money or extra income, I'm all throwing at this debt so I can get this paid off. So instead of just the $400, I ended up putting in $765.64. So it was almost $350 extra within these 2 weeks, which I was ecstatic with. So very, very excited that I could put more than expected towards that. Moving down here, I can just see in this table here that does come out to zero. So I had budgeted all my money and then I did allocate all the money. This table over here just kind of shows the totals for each category. And then you can see in these graphs, this one here is what my budgeted breakdown was going to be, and this is what I actually spent was going to be. So kind of the big changes are my bills. I had planned to spend 41% and only spent 36%. That's just mainly due to the fact I earned more income than I'd planned for. Same as variable expenses, 29 down to 26, and sinking funds from 10% to 9%. But the big one and the one I'm excited for was debt. I'd only planned to spend 20%, and I ended up putting 29% of my income towards that. So I would say that was a very successful paycheck for my first one. And I'm not going to be able to put this much money on a regular basis towards debt. I was just very lucky that I did get that annual leave load in. But I'm still excited either way. I'm excited that this happened, and it's a good start to the year. So I'm feeling positive going into the next pay period. If you have any comments, suggestions, please leave them down below as always. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.